I'm someone whom people might consider successful. I worked hard, I earned degrees, I got good jobs, I lived a good life. But I lived with a sneaking suspicion, despite all of that. I lived with a sneaking suspicion that I wasn't quite as competent as other people seemed to think I was. I felt like I was kind of faking it a lot of the time, and I used up a lot of energy worrying about when somebody was going to call me on it. At every stage in my adult life, from being an undergraduate who didn't apply for jobs because I didn't think I'd be competent enough at it, to always feeling out of my league in graduate school, even to getting a PhD and getting a job as a professor. At each of those life stages, I felt like, oh, this is the one. This is when they're going to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing. I progressed in my career well enough. I mean, I had drive, but I had a distorted view of what gets to count as competence, and that view made it very difficult for me to feel worthy of any accomplishments or to stretch and grow in new ways. Researchers suggest that most people, as high as 70%, experience this feeling of fraudulence or like they're getting more credit than they actually deserve. And they feel it across a broad range of contexts. They feel it in classrooms and boardrooms. They feel it in labs and libraries. They feel it on plant floors, in the surgery theater, in nursing. They feel it in law and marketing and finance. I mean, this list just goes on. That feeling has a name. In popular discourse, it's known as imposter syndrome. You've heard of it now. And in the research, it's known as imposter phenomenon. And tonight, I'm going to talk about what it is, why it matters for individuals and organizations, and a little bit about what we can do about it, with particular attention to the role of organizations. So, what is imposter phenomenon? We'll draw from the work of the Impostor Syndrome Institute, co-founded by Dr. Valerie Young, and the work of researchers who are featured in Dr. Kevin Coakley's 2024 book, The Impostor Phenomenon. So the label describes a cluster of thought distortions and behavior habits that result in imposter feelings. Some of the distortions and the habits that people who struggle with imposter phenomenon practice include believing that you're not as capable as other people think you are and fearing that everybody's about to figure out the truth. Attributing your successes to factors outside of you, like luck or timing, rather than to your own ability. And then overemphasizing your role in failures while underemphasizing your role in successes. So now that we have a little bit of a sense of what imposter phenomenon is, it makes sense that we might ask questions like, what would be the real gain in understanding imposter phenomenon? I mean, how much do we actually need to care about this topic? Is it really that big a deal? And how much do organizations need to care? Isn't it, finally, at the end of the day, a personal problem? Well, the answer is that both individuals and organizations should care, and they should care deeply. And here's why. For one thing, imposter phenomenon encourages you to stay in positions that you know, where you're comfortable, where you already know and can already do the tasks well. And this resistance to trying new things and taking some risk not only limits job satisfaction, the research is showing, it also limits career growth and career mobility. So you get stuck and you stay stuck. For another thing, it encourages what Dr. Jessamy Hibbard calls the imposter twins, overwork and avoidance. Imposter phenomenon encourages you to overwork, maybe even be a workaholic, so that you can prove to yourself and to everyone else that you actually belong there. And all of this overwork, of course, leads to burnout, which leads to mistakes and substandard work, which leads to feelings of incompetence and shame, which then feed imposter phenomenon, followed by the emotional exhaustion of trying to hide it all the time. Imposter phenomenon also encourages you to avoid, whether by procrastination or flying beneath the radar or avoiding leadership opportunities or just not stepping up your career, or by all of these, so that you can keep other people from finding out that you don't know what you're doing. So it has some pretty negative outcomes for people so far, right? And that's not even all. Imposter phenomenon has been consistently linked to mental health, including depression, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. And to lower achievement, reduced productivity, lower evaluations, fewer promotions. So for these very serious reasons, we should care at the individual level. Unmanaged imposter phenomenon creates deeply problematic outcomes for people. Moving it out to the organizational level, the evidence makes clear that organizations have a vested interest in paying very purposeful attention to imposter phenomenon. In addition to the problematic outcomes for individuals that I just laid out, which of course are happening to employees, let's take a look at the relationship to mental health in a different way. The World Health Organization reports that on a global level, an estimated 12 billion working days are lost every year to depression and anxiety, at a cost of $1 trillion annually in lost productivity. Now, looking at that cost from a local perspective, the National Safety Council, in collaboration with the University of Chicago, developed a mental health cost calculator for employers. Well, that calculator indicates that a place like East Tennessee State University, which was recognized in 2024 by Forbes magazine as being one of America's best in-state institutions, employers, faces a cost of over $3.5 million a year in lost time, job turnover and retraining, and health care. That calculator also indicates that a regional system, like Ballot Health, faces a cost of over $20 million a year for those same outcomes. So in addition to the troubling impacts for our employees, organizations face financial losses as well. Further, the fact that imposter phenomenon has been correlated with lower job satisfaction means that some very good people are going to leave. And others who are dissatisfied may stay, perhaps out of fear of taking a risk for a new job, who may quiet quit, sticking around in body, but not really in spirit or mind. And then there are those who are dissatisfied, who will try to make a go of it, still dealing with the emotional exhaustion and the self-doubt of imposter phenomenon, who will face stifled creativity and leadership avoidance. So in all of these cases, organizational leaders, managers, supervisors, administrators stand to lose very valuable innovation and leadership talent. So for these very serious reasons, we should care at the organizational level. Unmanaged imposter phenomenon creates deeply problematic outcomes there too. The good news is that these outcomes can be mitigated with purposeful and strategic action. At the organizational level, for example, research is showing that when employees can see that there's organizational support for managing imposter phenomenon, those outcomes are reduced. So what actions can organizational leaders take? I'm going to share with you 3 strategies that I've culled from the work of multiple researchers who are featured in Kevin Coakley's The Imposter Phenomenon. The first strategy is organizations need to create psychological safety for everyone. Drawing in part from Dr. Amy Edmondson's work on the topic, organizations need to create environments where it feels safe to take risks, to share concerns, to ask questions, to talk about imposter feelings. They need to make it safe to be in a learning curve by making imperfection normal, by fostering strong mentoring systems, and by funding professional coaching. So the first strategy is creating psychological safety. The second strategy is organizations need to be proactive about addressing burnout. Burnout is a thing. It's a very serious thing with very serious consequences, as many of you already know. And organizational leaders can work against it by ensuring that leadership is modeling work-life balance and taking time off. They can also work against burnout by avoiding what Nikki Jorgensen calls performance punishment. There we go. What Nikki Jorgensen calls performance punishments, which is rewarding top performers with more work. So the second strategy is proactively addressing burnout. The third strategy is organizations need to get more intentional about articulating exactly what success and excellence look like in a given position. And they need to provide specific and ongoing feedback about that. They need to take the guesswork out of work, in other words. And since micromanaging sends the belittling message that the person isn't capable of meeting standards of success, suggesting that they're an imposter, organizational leaders need to avoid that. So the third strategy is getting clear about what success and excellence actually look like while avoiding micromanaging. Organizational leaders who employ these three strategies are going to make a difference in the way that imposter phenomenon impacts the workplace and the people in it. They have much to lose in failing to address imposter phenomenon. In the limited time that I've had tonight, I've just been able to scratch the surface, and I've identified just 3 of multiple strategies that can be used to help employees manage imposter phenomenon and to maximize the expertise of the people who struggle with it. I encourage leaders to learn more about it, to seek out resources and coaching that are research-based in order to support employees in the management of imposter phenomenon, leading to a more courageous, more confident, more leadership-savvy workforce. As for me, it wasn't until I started taking imposter phenomenon very seriously in my own life that I began to see my own thinking and behavior as changeable. Now, I still have my imposter moments, like when I was selected to give a certain TEDx talk, for example, and before stepping out on the stage tonight, and maybe a couple times in the middle of it. But I've learned how to interrupt them. They're mostly moments to me now. They don't plague my life anymore. Imposter behavior and thinking can be managed, and individuals and organizations openly working on them together will be the difference that makes a difference. Thank you.